Today is September 3rd, 2021. My name is Charles Suter. Today I'm presenting part 14 of my series of Rationality, still focused on the rational rules, part 7. Again, my motivation is to help you become a more rational person. My main message: by following the rational rules, you become more rational. And again, just a reminder, rationality is not that challenging. It's simply common sense plus the application of the rational rules. Applying the rational rules is a way to become more rational and consequently more successful and happier. So applying these 3 rational rules in the presentation today will help you move in the direction of rationality. If you want to learn and apply more rational rules, refer to my earlier presentations on rationality. These 3 rational rules are focused on making choices, in other words, decision making. Number 1, acting as your best self gets you the best results. Understanding and balancing the trade-offs between goals and gains. And 3, choosing alternatives that offer the highest gain for the least cost. Rational Rule 19, strive to become and act as your best self. Everyone has the ability to act as their best self when necessary. A rational person strives to act as his best self at every opportunity. By acting as your best self, you will get best results. To act as your best self doesn't take much more effort than to be your normal average self. So why not display your best self more often so you can receive the best outcome? The more you develop and practice your best self, the more polished your best self becomes. A person's best self is not unlike any other skill that they've developed. The more one practices a skill correctly, the better the person becomes at applying that skill. Rational Rule 20. Before making a choice or choosing an alternative, consider all the trade-offs. Every decision involves a trade-off between gains and costs, what you expect to gain and what you have to pay for it. Also, every decision involves a trade-off between different gains. Different alternatives will have pluses on some gains and not so many pluses on another. Also, every decision involves a trade-off between different costs. Each alternative will have a different set of costs. For every goal, there are likely multiple ways to reach it. And each of these ways will have both pros and cons. Decision making implies there's more than one choice. Multiple alternatives for achieving a given goal or purpose. Even if a decision only implies one alternative, there is still a choice to be made because the default option is to do nothing or stick with the status quo. Every decision involving a person's response to their environment or for satisfying a personal need involves alternatives, and each alternative can be judged or evaluated according to its potential gains and costs. Gains are the rewards the decision maker wants, and the costs are the price that must be paid for those gains. A rationalist judiciously balances the expected gains relative to the expected costs to find the best value choice. No costs are ignored or diminished in making the decision, nor are the expected gains exaggerated. In this way, a person can compare one alternative against another with factually correct information of the relevant trade-offs. Again, gains versus gains, cost versus cost, and gains versus cost to arrive at a judicious decision. Too often, an irrational person will act to achieve gains without full consideration of all the costs or consequences. At other times, an irrational person fails to take a needed action because the drudgery of the costs are overblown or they have failed to consider hidden gains. Rational Rule 21. Before choosing, seek to maximize gains and minimize costs. When making a decision between multiple competing alternatives, each with its different mix of gains and costs, an irrational person will often get sidetracked by overemphasizing either the gains or underemphasizing the costs, while a rationalist will strive to find the right balance. One of the possible choices is to do nothing at all and to stick with the status quo. In fact, the default option is the one that most people pick all the time. If a person makes a decision to act, but then fails to act on that decision because the status quo becomes so attractive, then the decision is faulty. Either the perceived gains were too small or the perceived costs were too high. The best decision choices are those where the gains are maximized and the costs are minimized. Once a rationalist makes a decision, picking an alternative that is better than the status quo, he immediately begins working on the action plan for implementing the decision. When action is taken on a decision, it implies a rational decision. So my final message, if you want to become rational, simply follow the rational rules. The rationalist has learned to apply the rational rules to his advantage to gain success without many of the associated negative frustrations that come from a mind cluttered with irrational beliefs. So if you want to become more rational, then you must use your conscious awareness to act according to the rational rules, and also to instill these rational beliefs. Use a process of autosuggestion, whereby positive affirmations are repeated over and over through a period of time to reprogram the subconscious mind to accept the affirmations that you've picked for yourself to form new rational beliefs. Time and repetition will eventually extinguish the old irrational beliefs and allow new rational beliefs to take root in its place. So to become more rational and start receiving more success and happiness, you must start living a life by applying the rational rules. Success and happiness will be more attainable the more you act with the following ways. Deliberately and intentionally strive to act as your best self more often. 2. Make important decisions considering all the relevant trade-offs between gains, between costs, and between gains and costs. And finally, strive to find the alternatives offering the best gains for the least costs. That's all for now. Remember to stay positive. You'll be happier, healthier, and live longer.